rolling, and it's starting to roll really well. What do you do?
Well, what I do is I take that same scenario that I used before and I add a heck of a lot more excitement to it. The best way I can describe this or explain it is picture yourself out in the yard, you're working in the flower bed, and one of your family members is on the side of the house. And they're hollering, "Dad," or "Honey, come here and look at this." Well, you're probably going to finish what you're doing. You might even forget that they said, "Come over here and look at this." All of a sudden, that person on the side of the house starts screaming beyond belief, hollering, "Let me go, don't do that to me." You're probably going to drop what you're doing right away and go running over there, ready to do battle. And that's pretty much what this whole scenario is based on. So what I'm going to do is we'll just run through it and I'll introduce the calling to it. So the first one will be the lost cow walking through the woods. She's just kind of looking for some company. All right, now the rut's really kicking in. She's starting to throw in a little estrus whine with it. Now we're going to introduce the small bull into the scenario. Now all of a sudden she's starting to get really irate because now not only has a bull moved in on her, now he's starting to hold her against her will and keeping her from going back to the herd. He's going to try biting her, he's going to try hitting her with his horns, he's going to try pushing her down, and she's getting really agitated at this point. Then we'll throw the small bull back into it. And then what I like to do is maybe even after that start throwing in some of the huffs without the reed-in. A lot of times if there's a bull, I've seen it more often than not, by this time they're so outraged that somebody has come in and took one of their cows. You better be ready. It'll sound like a bulldozer coming down the hill after you. That calling works really well when you get into a situation where there's a big herd bull with a bunch of cows. If you're going to start throwing your location bugles, your imitating bugles, he's probably going to round those cows up and head up the mountain. I'm sure everybody's run into that situation. But if you throw this scenario at that big herd bull, what'll happen is if there is no hot cows in his herd, because that's the only thing that'll keep him from coming to you, if there's no hot cows there, he is totally outraged at the fact that somebody has hooked one of the cows from his herd, and he will leave his cows to come down to find out what's going on. That whole scenario, if you could just learn that scenario and the huffs and the grunts instead of going out and throwing out bugles and your normal cow calls, I guarantee you you're going to start calling in a lot more elk.
How long do you run through that scenario, and then when you break, pause, how long of a break do you have before you start that scenario again?
I'll run that scenario. It's a lot more drawn out than what I just did, but I'll run that scenario sometimes for 3, 4, or 5 minutes. I don't know if you've ever heard the elk in the process of this going on in nature, but I've heard the natural elk carry on like this for a half an hour, 45 minutes, without even taking a breather. But 3, 4, or 5 minutes, and I'll normally let it shut down for maybe 10, 15 minutes and then try introducing it again. I'll try to run through those scenarios in an area for, half an hour, 45 minutes, and I'll move just a little bit further up the mountain or a little further down the trail or closer to their bedding room maybe, to try to act like we're moving around, because the elk a lot of times will stand in the very, very same spot all day long.